Medicare for All is comprehensive. It covers all health care needs for senior citizens. It will finally include dental care, hearing aids, and eyeglasses.
But you don't know
Second
that.
of all.
You don't know that,
Second
Bernie.
of all.
We'll come to you in a second,
I do know, and
Congressman.
I wrote the damn bill.
America will never be a socialist country.
America will never be a socialist country. Will that hold true if you're elected president?
If I am elected president, we will have a nation in which all people have health care as a right, whether Trump likes it or not. We are going to make public colleges and universities tuition free. We are going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage of at least $15 an hour. And whether Trump likes it or not, when I talk about human rights, you know what that also means? It means that our kids and grandchildren have the human right to grow up in a planet that is healthy and habitable. I intend to be the Democratic nominee. Some people say that if maybe that system was not rigged against me, I would have won the nomination and defeated Donald Trump. We are planning to win the Democratic nomination. And I'm proud of the campaigns we're running in Iowa and in New Hampshire, and I'm proud of our grassroots support and the fact that we have 1 million volunteers. So our goal right now is to win it.
Many polls leading up to the third debate began polling Bernie as the Bernie campaign began to gain momentum. He was polling high in Texas, Nevada, New Hampshire, and Iowa. He also polled high among Hispanic voters. The outlook was good for the Bernie Sanders campaign in September 2019. Bernie Sanders wants to increase the minimum wage in America to become a living wage for the poor and working class. He's for the legalization of marijuana and wants to end America's fictitious drug war that has exclusively targeted people of color. His platform also includes affordable housing to reduce the homelessness in America. His platform also includes a tax on the wealthy, 77% estate tax for billionaires. Unlike the other candidates, Bernie Sanders came prepared. He also wants a $16 trillion climate plan, something no other candidate is proposing at this time. He's also the only Democratic candidate supporting Medicare for All, which will cost nearly $1.4 trillion. Bernie Sanders also stood for LGBTQ rights as early as the 1970s. In one letter, Bernie writes, "Let's abolish all laws dealing with abortion, drugs, sexual behavior, adultery, homosexuality, etc." He identifies as a democratic socialist and says that health care is a right. Bernie also wants to cancel student debt up to $1.6 trillion. In 1962, the police arrested Bernie Sanders for protesting segregation. Throughout Bernie Sanders' entire life, he's always been a champion of human rights. The biggest question heading into 2020 is, will he be cheated again?
I'm hoping for a Bernie Sanders win. It's not going to be easy. They're definitely going to try and rig it. They're not going to make it easy for us. I mean, there's a lot of money and power involved, and they're going to make us work really hard to try and win. Yeah, and I don't know if it can be done. I'm hoping. I'm going to do what I can. He always says it's not me, it's us. If he wins, it's going to be because we came out and gave him the support that he needs, because he can't do it by himself. I'm worried about the superdelegates. There is a reason why they're keeping them. I'm sure that they're going to do their very best to make sure he doesn't get enough delegates. Let's face it, all these people who are now running, they're going to be siphoning votes away from Bernie. Biden will probably stay until South Carolina and make sure that Bernie doesn't get the votes there. Elizabeth will probably get as many votes as she can in the Northeast. That's their plan. The DNC is not in this, in my opinion, to beat Trump. They are in this to beat Bernie.
Senator Elizabeth Warren was Hillary Clinton's superdelegate in 2016. She opposes Medicare for All, which is what 70% of all Americans want. She's running on a stolen idea with no intentions of having it be a single-payer option. She's just using the name out of popularity, which isn't fair to anyone on the left. Warren also doesn't represent environmental rights, green energy, eliminating fossil fuels, or pushing a comprehensive plan to prevent unnecessary climate change. In September 2019, Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren began working together. Warren's history with the military should be noted. Having a positive relationship with Raytheon is not a progressive stance. Warren also voted to make it easier to go to war with Iran. She voted for Obama's military budget. And under Trump, she voted for 2 of his military budgets. Warren is not a progressive. For most of her life, she has been a Republican. She does not represent the left or the left's best interest. Warren hasn't been very honest about her pledge not to take big money from billionaires. She is also using the money she raised from her 2018 race in her 2020 race. Her campaign is ready to take PAC money if she wins the nomination. Warren is the same sleight of tongue in hand as every other politician. Warren campaign officials say that she did not violate any of her pledge. However, she has 2 billionaire donors. And her daughter has bought an endorsement from the Working Families Party, a group that endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2016. Just like in 2016, the DNC will do anything it takes to stop Bernie Sanders.
I agree that Warren, I don't believe she's sincere. If she really were in it for the right reasons, she would have had endorsed Bernie in 2016. We were all hoping that she would, and she didn't. She has shown her true self now. I mean, she's meeting with Hillary. She's meeting with Wall Street people. She's meeting with all the wrong people. Bernie's meeting with us. She's meeting with powerful people. I don't think she's sincere.
Joe Biden is a former vice president under Barack Obama and a former senator. His voting record is conservative and his policies are dated. Biden has admitted that he wrote the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act gives permission to the United States government to spy on United States citizens. And Biden not only voted for the Iraqi war, he helped lead the march towards it. 8 million Muslims would lose their lives in the fictitious war on terror, something he would continue to do in his presidency. Biden voted against women's rights in 1982. Biden voted against gay marriage in 1996. In 1994, Biden voted for a bill that led to mass incarceration. He was also in favor of segregation and busing for profit, and sought support from racist segregationists.
Biden sought and received support from Mississippi Senator James Eastland, the Democratic chairman of the Judiciary Committee and a leading symbol of Southern resistance to desegregation. He frequently spoke of blacks as, quote, an inferior race.
Biden also wants cannabis marijuana to remain illegal, which is a very unpopular stance among the left. Biden continues the march for mass incarceration with this stance.
As far as Bernie, I've never seen a more enthusiastic base. I've never seen more artwork. This is a friend of mine was talking about artwork of Bernie, and you see all the memes, you see all the paintings, all the posters about Bernie, and what comes from that? Enthusiasm, period.
Let's see, when did we start following Bernie Sanders?
No, first I heard about him was my older sister, Shayla.
Yeah, I guess my daughter.
She took me to the first Bernie Sanders rally. I've only been to 2 so far. The first one I went to was back in 2016.
Right.
When they started running. The last one, the second one, was this year, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, we went to a rally in LA, and we got a picture with Jane. Jane took our picture with us.
All I knew about Bernie Sanders, to be honest, is in 2009, so I was like 18 or so, like watching MSNBC. I have to admit, I was a real junkie, watching MSNBC all the time. I remember when he did an interview with, I think, Ed Schultz on MSNBC before he died, and I'm like, wow, this guy sounds pretty cool. So when Bernie Sanders finally ran in 2015, I was like, yeah, I was sold.
So I read about this guy in Vermont, and I'm thinking, I didn't know what progressive was at the time, but I'm thinking he seems to be speaking the same language as all the people I'm around, civil rights and, equality. And that was big in the 60s. So it made an impression on me and I remembered him. And then in 2015, when he announced he was running, of course, I thought of that article and I'm like, man, I'm game. I'm on with this. I'm 60. I remembered this guy from the age of 14 from an article I read. He made an impression on me way back then. And once I heard he was running, I immediately recognized who it was. And I've been on it ever since.
Energy-wise, Bernie is just crushing it.
Massive rally marking the return to the campaign trail of Democrat Bernie Sanders after his heart attack.
People like to talk about his age, but again, being a cardiac nurse, I've done a lot of angiograms where I've seen firsthand many patients that have been stented before and after, and they get so much more energy.
I know it's hard to think that Senator Bernie Sanders could go harder on health care, but he is, because it was such a piercing experience for him. And it just really came full circle about the millions of people in this country who are either uninsured or underinsured, who hesitate to go to the hospital because they don't have health care and they could have had a different outcome. And we met people like that all on the campaign trail, or people who only take part of their medicine because they cannot afford it. So yes, this is his passion issue, health care in this country, universal health care in this country.
I'm amazed what he was doing before this. Now he's powered up. I really think that he is the one to beat Trump. The Democrats are really good at creating false situations to go after Trump when you don't have to do that. And I think the way that Bernie does it, and he's been doing it, fighting for civil rights, being arrested, protesting segregation. Bernie, it was on the right side of things. It's consistency, and Bernie has it, and he was the one who started this. A lot of people like to piggyback, a lot of imitators, not too many duplicators.
Voting machines are still a problem in our elections. They haven't been fixed and still pose a threat to a fair voting process. The United States are still vulnerable to another rigged election. An 11-year-old proved in 10 minutes that our voting machines are worthless. People like Jill Stein offer a solution. Ranked choice voting, the ultimate form of democracy. Ranked choice voting, or RCV, is where you rank your choice from who you want the most to the least. Maine is the first state to introduce RCV. 16 million American voters are at risk of having their votes switched or an altogether hack of the system. Hand-counted paper ballots are the only efficient way to have a fair election.
Guess who's no longer registered to vote? Me. They asked when I last registered, and I said I've voted in every election since I was legal. I said I voted in the last election. I registered because of the last voting that I tried to do and couldn't because I was somehow an independent now. So I'm literally currently not on the register to vote. I had to do an absentee ballot to vote for our library. So here we go again.
Just like in 2016, Bernie Sanders was dominating debates. His impressive responses were met with impressive reactions. In the short amount of time Bernie Sanders had, he spoke very direct.
Senator Sanders, do you want to respond?
I get a little bit tired, I must say, of people defending a system which is dysfunctional, which is cruel. 87 million uninsured, 30,000 people dying every single year, 500,000 people going bankrupt. For what reason? They came down with cancer. I will tell you what the issue is here. The issue is whether the Democratic Party has the guts to stand up to the healthcare industry, which made $100 billion in profit, whether we have the guts to stand up to the corrupt, price-fixing pharmaceutical industry, which is charging us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. And if we don't have the guts to do that, if all we can do is take their money, we should be ashamed about
Thank you, Senator.
In this next clip, Bernie Sanders focuses mainly on policies.
Your response.
Let me make a point. I think that it is absolutely imperative we go forward with impeachment. I hope that he is impeached. But I think what would be a disaster if the American people believe that all we were doing is taking on Trump. And we're forgetting that 87 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured. We're forgetting about the existential threat of climate change. We are forgetting about the fact that half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. So what we have got to do is end this corruption, set a precedent for future history that says presidents like this cannot behave this way. But we cannot and must not turn our backs on the pain of the working class of this country.
Senator Sanders, thank you.
And then the wealth tax question.
When you introduced your wealth tax, which would tax the assets of the wealthiest Americans, you said, quoting you, Senator, billionaires should not exist. Is the goal of your plan to tax billionaires out of existence?
When you have 500,000 Americans sleeping out on the street today, when you have 87 million people uninsured or underinsured, when you got hundreds of thousands of kids who cannot afford to go to college and millions struggling with the oppressive burden of student debt, and then you also have 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. That is a moral and economic outrage. And the truth is, we cannot afford to continue this level of income and wealth inequality, and we cannot afford a billionaire class whose greed and corruption has been at war with the working families of this country for 45 years. So if you're asking me, do I think we should demand that the wealthy start paying, the wealthiest, top 0.1%, start paying their fair share of taxes so we can create a nation and a government that works for all of us? Yes, that's exactly what I believe.
Senator Sanders is in favor of medical marijuana. I want to make sure that's clear as well.
Thank you.
Senator Sanders, this debate does mark your...
In October of 2019, Bernie Sanders unveiled his plan for legalization of marijuana. Bernie has been a longtime advocate for cannabis marijuana. This is something that majority of Americans want. Cannabis marijuana would replace the harmful opioid industry.
You have executive CEOs of major pharmaceutical companies making tens of millions of dollars a year. And in this particular case with the opioids, they knew that they were selling a product to communities all over this country which were addicting people and killing them. And last year, the top 10 drug companies made $69 billion in profit. This is what unfettered capitalism is doing to this country. And it's not just the drug companies. Right now, the CEOs in the fossil fuel industry know full well that their product is destroying this world, and they continue to make huge profits. That is why we need a political revolution.
He's pretty far left, if we have to label it. The things that he says, I've been thinking for 40 damn years, and he's the first politician I've ever heard say the things that I've been thinking out loud.
When we talk about a rigged economy, it's not just the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality. It is also the fact that in sector after sector, whether it is Wall Street, where you have 6 banks that have assets equivalent to half of the GDP of the United States, whether it is media, where you have 10 media companies that control about 90% of what the American people see, hear, or read, whether it is agribusiness, where we see merger after merger, which is resulting in the decline of family-based farming in this country. We need a president who has the guts to appoint an attorney general who will take on these huge monopolies, protect small business, and protect consumers by ending the price fixing, which we see every day.
Thank you, Senator.
I just think he's a humanitarian and he cares about human beings. If you want to call it left, okay, but I don't look at it like that.
In October, the Bernie Sanders campaign began to gain more momentum as voters clung to anti-corruption politics. Voters began to see straight through Elizabeth Warren and knew that Elizabeth Warren didn't stand for the same things that Bernie Sanders stood for. Bernie would gain more momentum when 3 of the 4 members of the Democratic Party known as the Squad would endorse him. They were set to endorse him at the Queensbridge rally. Another endorsement would come in the form of Michael Moore.
Have you decided who you're backing in the Democratic primary?
Yes, I've decided, and I'm going to show up publicly tomorrow at the Bernie is Back rally near the Queensboro Bridge here in New York.
You're endorsing Bernie Sanders?
And I'm endorsing Bernie Sanders.
Michael Moore, 3/4 of the squad, and Bernie Sanders would meet a massive New York crowd under the Queens Bridge. People filled the streets just to see Bernie Sanders. Almost 400,000 people tuned in just to watch the rally. That Saturday afternoon, 25,000 people showed up at the Queens rally, and by the end of the day, an estimated 33,000 people showed up that day, making it the largest rally of the 2020 election so far.